Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Hope everyone is having a great middle of the week.
Yeah.
Welcome to more Titan Talk. I'm Isiah. Killgoon with me, as usual, and it's just us today. But that does not mean that we don't have a whole lot of stuff to talk about. We had closed Alpha 6 go live yesterday, and Killgoon and I were talking. We've patched 4 times since that patch went live yesterday, which is kind of nuts.
And we have another one hopefully coming out later today. So it's, we're going quickly. I think that this is part of our strategy, right? It is, we want to get things out quickly. We want to see what issues there are, and we want to fix them quickly. So, it seems like it's going well so far. It seems like people are excited.
I know, right?
Excited.
I've been seeing a lot of people hop on the battleground. Lots of people enjoying Nemesis, Kefri, Izanami.
Yeah.
Playing around with all the strength item buffs. It's been really cool. I've been watching a lot of streams and lots of people hopping on the battleground to try out Smite too, which is really awesome.
Yeah, it's been great. We've seen, numbers are trending up a little bit, which is great. And, the community always likes to look at, Steam charts or Steam TV or whatever, your Steam number is, right? But that's like a small portion of what an indicator of your potential success is going to be, or the health of your game, I guess. And we're seeing a lot of like our internal metrics are just continuing to get better as well. We're really excited that it seems like we're on the right track. We have a lot of work to do. We are not done yet.
We still have a lot of work to do.
We are going to continue patching nonstop until we get the game in a really good place. But I think generally speaking, we feel like things are going okay, pretty good. We're on the right track.
Going really well, and I hope that the community is feeling that as well.
Yes,
which is really awesome. Well, let me bring up the handy dandy laptop, and let's talk about everything that has gone live since closed Alpha 6 went live
and it's
yesterday.
A lot.
Yeah, it was a lot. So, handy dandy laptop. First up, let's talk about ranked. Initially, we had Max on last week to talk about rank changes. When closed Alpha 6 went live, we didn't get these rank changes in for a few hours. We were working out some issues and some of the bug reports and stuff like that with kind of the internal things. But we do have a lot of changes into ranked, so I'll go through them really quick. Trio queue is back. You can now queue ranked with a party of 3.
Yep.
There are some matchup protections and kind of rules that go alongside this. Again, Max was on the show last Monday. If you want to watch the full VOD with him, how he and all the charts and stuff that he brought with further explanation here, but we'll kind of go through the addition of trio queues, necessitates some match protections to ensure more fair matchups. So there's some rules here, and I'm not going to go through all the valid matchups here.
The TLDR is that if you're in a 3-stack, you're only going to be playing games against other 3-stacks or 2 stacks.
Yes.
So you're never going to have totally imbalanced matchups, hopefully, where you're just doomed to lose because one team is better coordinated with more teams.
Yeah.
So all of the valid matchups that the matchmaker can make are, within plus or minus 1% of it being a 100% even 50-50 matchup. So you only have yourself to blame if you lose. No, you can still blame
your
a lot of
team.
things.
What are you talking about?
Sorry, rule number 1 of a MOBA. Yes,
Right.
I have to blame my teammates. But no, I think it's just good to know that the matchmaker is creating matches that should be theoretically pretty darn balanced.
Yeah, cool. And I will zoom in.
And I will say, if you played a couple games right after the patch came out, you didn't experience this because we actually had the matchmaker still using the old matchmaking logic for the first, I don't know, I'd probably say a couple hours of the day on Tuesday. So apologies if you had a few bad matches at the beginning of the day on Tuesday. Should be much better again now.
Yeah. Cool. We've also added some solo queue SR protection. So solo players who lose a match after being placed in a match where the enemy team has a party will experience just a slight reduction in SR losses, and SR protection will scale depending on how much of the enemy team is composed of parties, with the greatest SR protection occurring in 3-2 versus 3-1-1 matchups.
Yeah, and as someone who doesn't have any friends, no, I'm joking. I do actually mostly play solo, though. I don't know. I'm like a solo gamer at heart. I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm an only child. I'm just like a weird loner person. But no, I play a lot of games alone, and I enjoy when games recognize that you're fighting uphill a lot of times if you aren't playing with a friend.
Cool. More ranked stuff. There was a soft reset to coincide with the Trio Q reintroduction. So Masters 3+ players were reset back to Obsidian 2. Diamond 2 to Obsidian 1 players were reset to Diamond 2. And then Clay to Diamond 3 players, there was no reset. But there was a soft reset to kind of coincide with these triple Q, Trio Q reintroductions. Another note, this is the final soft reset of the ranked test season. So next season is going to be in January when we go free-to-play open beta, and that will bring the first hard reset to
Yes.
ranked. So,
and I will always add the little caveat that like there could just be some random bug that screws up everybody's rankings, and we have to do a little bit of a reset. But we don't anticipate making any other resets to ranked for the foreseeable future.
cool. And then the last note from Max here, 5Q ranked has been temporarily disabled. We're just re-examining how to implement that just for the best competitive experience for Smite 2 ranked. So
Yeah, and I was talking with Hindu Man this morning a little bit about like, how we get a real competitive experience in ranked. So I think we are putting thought into that. It's just how do we make sure that you're not waiting 8 hours for a match and all that things.
Cool. All right, well, let's move on to talk about some of the bug fixes and stuff that have gone live. Zoom in for you, chat. So first up, this went live yesterday with a patch. We fixed Neath backflip not going on cooldown if it was used near a wall. We fixed Khepri's basic attacks dealing physical damage. Fixed Zeus Thunderclap going on cooldown if it was interrupted in the pre-fire state. Knockups will now properly interrupt dashes that aren't knockup immune. Combat Blink is now canceled whenever you're silenced. Grabs no longer have client authoritative movement.
And that basically means like when you're doing a multiplayer game, there are things that you have to let the client, your own PC, have some level of authority on to overwrite the server. Because if you don't, then you're constantly like server correcting your position to where you are. And so grabs were using purely client authoritative movement, which was not the right answer there and could be exploitatable or create like bad situations. So now it's using a more server authoritative movement that does still, it's good server authoritative movement, but it is not a purely client authoritative anymore.
Yep. We added stability improvements. We added more gods to the god fallback list for when vendors fail to load in match lobby. And basically, this is something that you probably don't experience a lot, but we have a lot of tech in place to save a match if there's any sort of weird connectivity issues, a player's taking too long to load into the match lobby. We have a lot of different fallback methods to try and get you into that game no matter what in order to protect the match from failing in the match lobby state. So basically what this is just we're adding gods to the vendor for when a player takes too long to load into that match lobby to still be able to select a god and get into the match.
Yeah, or if the service that tells your client that it owns X gods doesn't get back to the client in time, then we will let you just pick from a list of gods.
Yep. So, all right, and then last up from yesterday's patch, AI matches. We fixed bots not picking the correct lanes and roles.
Yep, there were a number of like versus AI bugs, and we'll see some more fixes. Just something I guess we didn't test that much internally. We play most of our test matches versus other people, but something we'll keep an eye on for the future for sure.
Absolutely. And then the first patch of this morning with a lot of bug fixes. Under general, we fixed gods being able to proc to basic attack during Aegis. That's a no-no.
Yeah, so Aegis, like on a tech side, is a self-silence and a self-disarm essentially. And we somehow the self-disarm part of it got unflagged. So it's fixed again.
Cool. We fixed gamepad focus issues on the scoreboard and removed the broken mute button. We fixed healing text displaying random numbers when healing at full health. And we improved some stability, fixed a couple crashes there. And then last but not least, we added some localization flavor text. Had a lot of copy and stuff coming to this update on the overview pages. So adding some localization for players that play in languages that aren't English. On the God side of things with Chalk, Torrent, we fixed an issue with the ability dealing damage to towers. Khepri, General, we fixed the distance sun move tracker not calculating distance correctly. Abduct, we fixed an issue where multiple gods could be grabbed.
Oh, that's a funny one. I didn't see that one. That's funny.
Khepri was grabbing. Oh yeah, he was real good. So one at a time, Khepri. Choose your targets wisely. And then Scarab's Blessing, the ultimate, of course. A few bug fixes here. Addressed an issue where the target was stuck reviving. We also addressed an issue where the target's camera becomes detached, and added additional glow effects not following him properly on the ultimate. Next up for the first of today's patches, Kukul Khan, Whirlwind, fixed Staff of Mirrodin not working with this ability. So short and sweet.
Yep.
Get those double whirlwinds if you are building Mirrodin. And then the second patch of today, more bug fixes. We fixed ally bots not respawning in versus AI matches if the same god was on an enemy team. We fixed an issue where Conduit Gem would stop working under certain conditions, added further safeguards to prevent Capri revive issues, and then we fixed an issue with Izanami's AO1 projectile speed scaling. So that's the second patch of this morning that has already hit live servers. And Killgoon is going to read up. We already have another patch in the works to go live later this afternoon with even more bug fixes.
Yes, so later today, this is what is targeted. This may not go live later today, but this is targeted. This will be a client patch. So I do believe there will be a download needed to get this update. We will be fixing starter items not showing the upgrade available indicator, which is a huge one to me. I am notorious for forgetting to upgrade my starter item because it doesn't have the little upgrade arrow. So that should be there, hopefully. PS5 background home screen music will be re-added. Izanami Shadow and Radiant Stealth materials are currently not showing up properly, and that'll be fixed. We're going to fix Kepri's Abduct, only playing one voice line. It's one of those abilities that has multiple voice lines it can play. And fixing the FX on Ginger Snap Baron Samedi's ult outer line, which makes it difficult to see allies and enemies. So that's the stuff that we're fixing in this next hotfix. We also, just right before this, noticed a typo where Izanami's short description says boomerangs instead of boomerangs. So that'll be updated to say boomerangs sometime soon. But, you know, this is life. We'll get them fixed.
Always be patching, always be fixing bugs. And I believe Lermy is already starting to get some data to start thinking about some balance and stuff like that for a further patch in Closed Alpha 6, but nothing on the balance side that we're going to talk about today, but just keep an eye out on that. We'll probably have Lermy back on the show at some point to go over all that stuff.
She's a regular guest on the show.
Exactly. Yep. All right. Well, that is all that we had on our docket today, and we went really long on Monday with patch notes, so we figured we would save the majority of today's show just for community Q&A, hang out with y'all, answer your questions. So.
Yes. I will also say Zeus also says lighting bolt instead of lightning. Also already been correct in dev. And also, I don't know if you've noticed that Zeus's is the only description in the game which is all caps instead of like camel case is what it's called, where it's just the first letters capitalized. So that's also been fixed in dev, but not in the next update. Just it'll go live eventually. That's not things that aren't game breaking. We're going to take a little bit longer to get live.
Right.
But yeah. And then our guest on Friday is going to be J-Mac, talking a little bit about some esports stuff.
Yep, we've got J-Mac on for Friday to talk about some Smite 2 esports, which would be exciting.
Yeah, I think it's just good to give people an update on how things are going with that if you haven't been following along. I don't think there's going to be any like big new esports reveals or anything. It's more just like, let's talk about how the season's been going so far, how we feel about it, how the teams are doing, and kind of what the flow is heading into Vegas, which, you know, is a big event for us.
Yeah, we've got playoffs kicking off this weekend, which is, you know, it's crazy to think that, you know, in about a month we'll have our in-studio LAN here to qualify people to Vegas, and then in January we'll have our Founder Series champion. Yeah,
I was seeing some of the art being mocked up for it this morning. It's looking good.
Nice. So, all right, chat. What do you want to talk about today? What do we got on the docket? Will pedestals return?
So we actually had to return pedestals already for some short gods that just didn't.
Danzaburo, our short king.
Yes. But will it return as a cosmetic that you can customize? I don't know. Maybe it's not high on our list of priorities, I would say. I think that if we did that, we would also have to change the lobby layout to be able to see your allies on their pedestals. But there's pros and cons to doing that. But it just would be a bigger arc of work.
Yeah. Let's see here. Is there a chance Ares passive could get fixed where you have to die to get updated values, or is that intended?
That's probably not intended.
Yeah, that's probably not intended.
Yeah, I'm just going to write that down real quick. Cool. Thanks for the bug note.
Thank you. Let's see here. Can we expect an all-new monster god next year?
So we aren't going to confirm any of the gods on the roster for next year. Yeah. I would say that we try to balance the roster between, you know, different pantheons, different classes, different gameplay styles, different archetypes of visualness. And I think that in most years we try to have at least one non-humanoid or non-traditional humanoid character. Yeah. So I would expect that there will probably be at least one non-traditional humanoid character next year. Your definition of monster may be different than my definition of a monster, so I can't say it's exactly what you want. Maybe it's something cooler than what you thought you were going to get. But yeah, that's kind of as much of a confirmation as I can give right now. But yeah, we've already figured out what the first 3 gods of next year, new gods of next year, are going to be. We have a meeting, I think, in a few weeks to settle on who the 4th one is.
Right.
And I think we're kind of locked in on the 5th one, but the one we want to do for the 5th one is a class that doesn't fit in the spot that the 4th one needs to fit. So yeah, we're definitely thinking a lot about the gods for next year already.
Yeah, I will say that kind of coincides with another question I see in chat. Do you guys have a list of new Smite 2 gods you're thinking ahead about, or do you go one at a time? Yes, we have a list of, I think when I was looking at it, it was about 7 or 8 that we're throwing around right now. So
yeah, I would say those are kind of the front runners. Like we have a deck, a slideshow, where basically people can just like add god pitches to it of like who they think would be cool to see. And there's probably 70 slides on there, like there's a lot of weird fringe gods that people think would be cool. And there's a lot of like common, community picks that we're like, oh, that would be cool. How might we do it? Right. So we definitely look at everything the community says. We look at our own ideas and how we can make things cool. And then we just kind of like meet and we figure out what we think the coolest thing we can do in this slot is, given the restrictions that we have around it. Like what class does it need to be? What other gods are already on the calendar? Like I know, I don't remember the exact details around it, but I want to say that Atlas, we almost did like 3 years in a row before we finally did Atlas, but we decided that he was too similar to another god that was on the calendar in terms of either like what we were thinking about doing with his kit or the way we wanted him to look, or maybe we already had another guardian that we would rather do or something. And we thought he needed to be a guardian. So sometimes gods will get pushed back just for those reasons, but it is a balancing act. I think that everybody has a pet god that they would love to see in the game that works here. But yeah, it's always a balancing act of what we think is the coolest thing we can do at the time.
Yeah. Let's see here. Are there any plans in talks on improving hyper late game? It feels like after 30 minutes, the only thing to do is fight for Fire Giant.
Yeah, we've seen this a little bit. I think that, Gold Fury should be more of an objective in late game in Smite 2 than it is in Smite 1, right? In Smite 1, literally the only thing you can do is fight for Fire Giant, right? And it's just Fire Giant dance every game. At least in Smite 2 right now, we do have the Gold Fury, the Ancient Fury as a secondary objective, that it can be better to fight for Gold Fury, and kind of it splits the game up a little bit. I think that some of the problems are that like we don't have the potions for late game that Smite 1 does. So you reach kind of this gold peak and then you can't abuse your gold advantage anymore. I think that's probably more of a problem with the game stalling out late than anything else right now, from my personal perspective and from talking to some other people. I don't know if we need more objectives in the late game, but that's kind of how I respond to that, I guess.
Cool. One thing that I know we have been throwing around that I saw in chat, any plans for updating Khepri to make it so he can reactivate the sun setting early instead of just at the end of the line? And I know that's something that the design team did see almost immediately after we showed off Khepri, and then even more after Khepri went live. It's something that they're talking about internally. There is an arc of work that goes into that. It seems simple, but it's more complicated than you may think.
Yeah, and I think it also potentially makes him too good.
Yeah.
Right? If you can not always, but if you can almost always confirm the double damage basically, or you don't have to risk, I have to run forward to the endpoint to get the buff on myself, then it's just, there's like no downside to the ability anymore. And it doesn't like move fast enough to where, and it's a big enough area where it's not really like going to be a skill shot the way that like Iset's ball refire is. So it's definitely something that's come up a lot. I think that generally we feel like it would probably make him OP and not in a fun way. Things that are like, that's kind of a little bit OP, but it's fun to play with and against are one thing, but I don't know that it adds that much interesting to the play style.
Yeah. Let's see here. would you consider adding intros when picking a god later on?
Maybe. I think that's it is a thing that some games do. I think you can argue that it's a good like character moment. I think also it's one of those things that is cool the first time you see it and then doesn't have a lot of value on the 100th time you've played a god, or even the 10th time you've played a god, right? And I think that most of our effort right now is going into things that improve the core experience of the game long term, or else things that help improve your onboarding in a way that makes it more likely that you're going to like learn the game and stick around, right? And if you're the kind of person that you play the game because it's flashy and it's shiny and it's polished, right? Like that's, you're probably not going to end up being a Smite player long term. Not that we're not, not that we're not trying to make a polished game, not that we're trying to make a flashy game, but like just being realistic, like there are games that are made by thousands of people that have budgets that are 8 million times what ours are, right? And the amount of polish and whatnot that they can put into things is going to be at a different level than we can do. Yeah. The reason why people choose to play Smite is that it offers a unique gameplay experience that has an incredible amount of depth, that gives you that kind of like fantasy style combat in third person in this deep MOBA world, right? Like that and it's got gods. Like those are kind of the main reasons why people like the game, right? So what's going to make the game be a better game? I think it's leaning more into those things than putting the time into doing like character intro animations right now.
Let's see here. Stream number 3 of asking for an unranked draft mode. We talked about this at length, I believe, when Max was on.
Yeah, I think that basically it's just such a narrow world that you would want to play with picks and bans, but aren't willing to play ranked.
Right.
Like why would you choose that? And it seemed like the only real response that came up in chat was no mirror matches. Like that was the thing people wanted to avoid. So, I mean, we definitely like still have that feedback and we're still talking about it. But I think that generally speaking, we want a casual mode where you can get into the game pretty quickly. So you don't have to waste time picking and banning, where you know that you can get your god, because as a casual player, it's important that you usually don't have a big roster of gods and you want to be able to play the god you want to play. And then there's a ranked mode that is more competitive and has those picks and bans and whatnot.
Right.
I think that finding a middle ground is very hard to do unless, I mean, if we had hundreds of millions of players or something, right? Like if we were, the size of Fortnite, right? Like then there might be a big enough player base to where there's a niche that would fill that gap, but it's hard to see there being much of a demand for that, even in the long term. Like it seems like it's a niche that doesn't really exist once you dive into it.
Can we give the Phoenix splash damage on its fireballs to help it survive a full wave with 2 Minotaurs? The Minotaurs, we've gotten a lot of feedback on.
We did already reduce the Minotaurs' health and damage once. So question for chat, do you think they're still OP? Because the point of Minotaurs is supposed to be to just slightly make you play the macro game of the map a little bit more. Yeah. Right? Because in Smite 1, you can just kind of ignore waves. And you really shouldn't ignore waves because there's a lot of gold in a wave. And there's also like some strategic elements about like how you push up a wave and when somebody has to back to defend a wave, right? So I think that like we generally like the Minotaurs and what they add to the game in terms of the strategy. I think it's more of a balance question. Yeah. But I think that like you should have to back to defend a Phoenix if 2 Minotaurs are pushing it down. I think that's our current opinion. If you don't agree, then tell us why and tell us what you think we should do. Yes, we are aware that minion trophies or achievements are broken right now. We are looking at those. I think all of the other achievements should be working now, though. So other than minions, we've got them all working, and we will get that one working soon.
Yep. Can we get an emblem for the amount of gods we have mastered? I think that's good feedback.
Yeah, we have that in Smite 1. I will write that one down. Probably not tomorrow or anything.
Yeah.
But
my recent matches, people using mics are really loud. Yeah, we got some feedback in the Ambassador Discord about that. And we have our crew looking at the audio settings for sure, because we've gotten that feedback as well.
Yep. Writing it down instead of taking a picture of chat. Yeah, well, I didn't see the one. I actually have already taken 2 pictures of chat. But no, I had to actually write that one down because I didn't see it. So, Titan Talk Hot Tub Edition. No. That's not happening. But thank you. We don't have a hot tub at the office, so couldn't do that live stream.
Here's a good one. How are we planning on increasing the Smite 2 player base?
How are we planning on increasing the Smite 2 player base? Well, so I think there are a lot of things that we plan to do to increase the Smite 2 player base. The number one thing is we have to make a game that is deserving of having a high player base, right? To some extent, good games will succeed and games that aren't good enough will not, right? And you can make a really good game that just doesn't, it appeals to too niche of an audience, so it's never going to do much. But I think if the number one core thing to make Smite 2 a success, to have more players, is the game has to be better. Yeah. And that's what we've been working really hard to do for the past few months, since we've started making the game, but especially visible to you guys for the past few months. And that's like our number one focus right now, right? Spending a lot more money marketing the game right now, I don't think it's there yet, right? I don't think the game is in a place where spending money on it is going to make it better. But I think you can tell that we feel like the game is getting better. Players feel like the game is getting better. And we have started making it a little bit easier to get into the game because we feel like it's in a better spot, but it's still like in a spot where if you're a Smite player, you probably will like it now, right? I don't know if it's to the point where it's like ready for a truly like wide audience yet, right? So making the game better, step one. Step two, right, is when we go free to play, we anticipate that the game will get a lot bigger, right? Everything that we see from the community and just looking around, it seems like there are a lot of people waiting for the game to go free to play before jumping back in, right? People don't want to play a game that's an alpha and things are changing all the time. People don't want to pay money for a game that they can play for free. They can play Smite 1 for free, you know? So I think that like when we go free to play, that will expand the audience. I'll say that there's also like marketing things that we are going to be doing, right? Like we run ads, we have paid influencers in the past. I'm sure we'll pay influencers again, although I think that market's changed a lot since the way it used to be. And we do have a creator program where we support the people who do create content about the game. And I think that's almost more important than like paying random people to stream your game the way it used to be. And then, we also are working with the platforms always about like, how do we get more visibility on the game? Yeah. And then, we also have our big esports event coming up and, more competitive for the future, right? I think all of those things kind of combine to build a game that's going to grow over time, hopefully, right? And that's kind of our goal with the game, right? It's not, we're not going to have 1 million players on day one, I don't think any game does anymore, but I think that our strategy is very intentional. It is, we are building a great multiplayer game that is going to grow over time. We'll probably get a surge of players around free to play, but then we just want to keep growing from there, right? I think if you look at games like, Path of Exile has done a really good job of just like consistently growing over time. I think Hunt Showdown did a very good job of growing consistently over time. I think their most recent patch was a little bit down, but I thought was still good. I think there's a lot of games that have kind of followed this model that aren't the AAA spend $80 million on your marketing budget, which is probably a low number for most of those games, to be everywhere and then force yourself to be a thing and then people stop playing it 3 days later, right? That's not our strategy. I saw this post about the Morgan's Wheel not being on normal cast for controller live. I took a photo of that. That was one of the things I took a photo of. I'll follow up on that. I thought that was fixed, but maybe something went wrong there. I will also answer this. Please make skins purchasable on Smite 2. I'll say we've been having a lot of talks about that recently. We would like to re-enable skins for purchase sometime soon. We'll probably be talking about it more next week. We actually have some tech now that I think will enable that to happen.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that when we bring things back, though, we price them at a reasonable amount and y'all feel comfortable with how we're doing it, because we still aren't going to have chests or alternate.
Right, yeah.
Because the thing with Smite 1, right, is that like all of the skins are available for direct purchase. Nobody buys them direct purchase, right? Because it's the most expensive way to buy the skins. So when they were previously available in Smite 2, and the only way you could see them was direct purchase, and they were at their full, normal, non-discounted direct
really
purchase
bad,
price,
yeah.
it felt really bad because nobody's paying... Very few people are paying 1,200 gems for a skin in Smite 1, but that is the price of a direct purchase skin in Smite 1. You can argue that that should not be the price of a skin in Smite 1, but it has been the price for 7 years or something like that now, for all new skins, basically. So we are investigating that. You know, probably we'll talk more about that next week, but I think we're aware that, like, we aren't, just to be clear, we aren't working on new skins still, you know, we're but just turning on the skins that are already in game that you could buy in Smite 1, giving you a way to buy them in Smite 2, I think.
Will any other gods have a hidden passive like Horus and Set in Smite 1? Maybe. Depends.
Yeah,
you know?
if there's a good reason, could do it. I have seen the Brazilian Pantheon posts. There have been a lot on Reddit. There have been a lot in chat here. I don't think we're opposed to adding a new Pantheon. I'm not going to commit to doing a new Pantheon on this show. I think that the thing that helps us is understanding like what is exciting to players, ideally players around the world, about this Pantheon, and what character is the one to start with, right? Because it doesn't necessarily mean that the character has to be like name recognition, well known, but what's just so cool about them that when we put them on our box art, people are going to be like, holy shit, that's cool, I got to play it, right? And I'm not saying that y'all haven't done a good job of that, but just as a general note for anybody that's lobbying us to do a specific new Pantheon or a specific new god, it's like, what makes this character, this Pantheon, so cool to people around the world that we need to do it? Do we feel like the chief deities of pantheons should release soon or have priority? And the specific example here is Perun, the chief deity of the Slavic pantheon. I would say not really. I can see the argument for why they should be, but we generally don't prioritize just because somebody is a pantheon's leader that they need to be in the game. It's more kind of going back to the things I mentioned earlier, which is like, do they, are they well known, just name recognition? Do they have a unique visual hook? Is there a unique gameplay hook that we can tie to them? I will probably get flamed or a Reddit post out of this, but historically over the years, one of the gods that has come up a lot on Reddit that we've had trouble coming up with, like, what should be the visual hook and the gameplay hook for them that makes them unique and interesting, is Izanagi, right? Izanagi is a great name. It's a character that has ties to a lot of characters in Smite 2 and Smite 1. But if you look at like the historical representations of Izanagi that we would be trying to draw from, we've had trouble figuring out where we want to go with that. Yeah. And we have had some conversations internally that have led us to more interesting angles, but sometimes it takes a long time to be like, how could we make this god cool in a way that, again, everyone around the world is going to look at and be like, holy shit, this guy's cool, I want to play as him.
Quick cast on Sobek targeters disappear. Yes, I saw Pon posting about that earlier this morning in our chat. So it's something the team is looking into.
Is there any deity that we're 100% opposed to getting in the game? I would say there's nobody that we're 100% opposed to. I would say that like there's probably like I would say actually there's one that I personally would continue to lobby against that has come up a lot of times. There's an I believe it's a Mayan god who's like the god of suicide or something. And I don't think we would want to put that in our game just because that's like, we wouldn't want to be seen as encouraging that ever, or, you know, anything like that. But and there may be some other gods like that are just associated with a thing that I would feel bad about pushing on our player base. Right. Yeah. But other than like really weird edge cases like that, no. I mean, like, we're willing to do really memey stuff. We're willing to, you know, like, I've seen there's the Hawaiian shark god that comes up sometimes. Yep. There's the Smiter Medjed. Mm-hmm. You know, there's like a lot of these meme gods that people mention a lot of times. There's a lot of like really serious ones. There's dark ones. There's, you know, gods of love. There, you know,
right. Yeah.
Like, and I don't think we're opposed to any pantheon or any, you know, as long as we feel like we can do it justice and not offend a lot of people in the process. Yeah. I think that we're pretty open to things. Yeah, and I think you know, the people that are spamming, you know, currently very actively worshipped gods. I think that's one of those things where it's like, could we do that without offending a lot of people? Yeah. You know, it's probably unlikely. Like, it would be cool to do maybe 1 year, but you know, I don't think that that's happening anytime soon, right? And I think the other thing is that, like, you know, going back to something I mentioned when we did that slideshow, like, you know, we are real people with real, you know, lives as well, right? And so, you know, there are people here who are adherents of every religion and, you know, maybe personally offended by certain things, right? And it's like, you know, we need to listen to everybody's voice and make sure that we're doing things in a proper, respectful way. Oh, so this one comes up a lot. I will talk about this. I won't specifically say the IP, but like using gods from other IPs. You know, I think it's a really cool idea, but it's very difficult to make it work from a legal perspective and also from just like a money-making perspective, because both sides need to make money in a deal like that, right? And because we have so let's say, who's a god from a piece of something? Kratos. Okay. So let's say we want to put Kratos into the game as a playable god, right? So now, everybody has to get Kratos for free, basically, because almost all of our players own the Ultimate God Pack. So there's no money coming in that goes to Sony directly, unless we sell a lot of new God Packs, and we'd have to work out some weird deal that they get a percentage of the God Pack sold for a period of time or something, right? So there's no money to pay for it, right? Also, all of these deals typically have a term for the contract, right? So we can only sell skins for X period of time, and they can revoke it after a certain period of time. We have it written in that they can't force us to take it out of the game, but we can't sell it new, right? Yeah. So for example, Ruby, we can't sell Ruby skins anymore because that had a change in ownership, and they revoked that, right? Which is, it's fine. It's the way these things happen, right? But what if a god is revoked and new players can never unlock a god? Like, that is a feasible outcome in the world of a licensed god. The last thing is skins. Like, if we wanted to put a costume on a character that we don't own, it gets very difficult legally to sort out how and what they're willing to approve for that character. And then, like, do people want to buy it? You know, like, and how do you share the revenue on that? Like, it leads to a lot of like more business side difficulties, I guess, than anything else. But the other one is just like, how do you make sure that players can access the god for forever? And nobody is going to give us a unlimited license to sell their character for the future, right? That's just not a thing that happens in the world.
Yeah. Solid question. Are we interested in community suggestions for new items after January? I would say maybe not even after January. If you want to give us feedback on items, you know, head over to our official Discord, fill out the Smite 2 surveys.
Yep.
That's something that we're definitely interested in looking at. And I would say a challenge for you is to think about maybe not just a singular item, but what's missing in the current item store that you feel like needs to be added to Smite 2. Like, I'll give you an example. Anti-shield has been something that's been thrown around a lot as of recently. So anti-shield is like an archetype of item that people think they should be added to Smite 2. And I know the team is already looking into solutions for that. So maybe not going through the entire effort of designing a full item, but think about the archetype or the niche that the item store needs in Smite 2, and then pass that feedback along to us in our official channels for sure.
Yes. There was a post here. The Smite 2 item store doesn't feel as easy to use as in Smite 1, especially on controller. Are there changes coming to that? If you can be as specific as possible about what doesn't feel good, that makes it easier for us to address it. Because I don't know if you played recently, but in not this patch, but the last patch,
the last one,
we put in a console Smite 2 item store, which pretty much one-to-one mirrors the Smite 1 item store. So if there's things that still aren't feeling good there, please let us know, because we need to address those. Yeah, like new split store, I think feels really good. So if you are having issues still, we also added an active items tab in this update. Yep. So it's easier to find active items.
You've got the bolt
console.
icons next to all the active items as well.
Yep. I have seen a bunch of posts here about Don's Burrow locking people out of things. I made a note on that, so we'll look into that. So yeah.
Could we get Doug as a god in Smite already? Doug the Goat.
Oh, I thought they were talking about the old Nickelodeon show.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, it's like, that's an odd crossover, but I mean, maybe.
Let's see here. Can you sell relics? You cannot sell them. If you accidentally buy one at the beginning of the game, you can undo.
Yes.
To select your preferred relic, but you can't sell them, no.
Was it hard to get the Transformers skins in Smite 1? Yes, I would say it was on many levels. So it was a multi-sided business deal because there are multiple owners of that franchise, and all of them needed to approve of every step of the way. And also, they just were really technically difficult skins to make. So yeah, that was probably the most difficult crossover from a business and development standpoint. Which is also why we didn't go back and make a lot more Transformers skins, because they were just very hard to do. But I loved it. I'm a huge Transformers kid. Like when I was little, like Transformers were like my favorite toy, and it was awesome to see them in game.
Yep. I'm gonna pass this your way, Killgoon, before it scrolls back. Someone said, "I noticed the new console store is sorted by cost, where Smite 1 was alphabetical." So that may be something for us to look into.
I'm pretty sure Smite 1 is sorted by cost, but I will take a look at that. I'm gonna make a note.
Yeah, I see another person saying, "Can we sort it by A to Z?"
Okay, I'll take a look. I'm pretty sure the Smite 1 is actually by cost, but maybe it's the Smite 1 PC store that's by cost, and the Smite 1 console store is alphabetical. Yeah. I will take a look, and I will see what we can do. That should be easy to do if should be easy to do if that's the change.
Let's see here.
Oh, so how hard was it to get the Slipknot skins? I just love telling stories, so I'm just going to keep telling stories. Do any members of the band play? I'm a huge fan. I don't think any of the members of the band played, but the way that one happened was we do a lot of player surveys, as you know, and we also just do like other player analysis, trying to understand like how we can do things that our players will like, right? And there are a lot of people that wake up every morning thinking, how can I do something that my players will like, right? And one of the things that surprisingly came up a lot on all of our player surveys and all of our internal stuff, and even when we tried to like correct for it, it was still there, was that like Slipknot was a surprising percentage of our players' favorite band.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, people that maybe you would expect that are just huge artists. And then like Slipknot was massively popular with our player base. And we got a cold call email from somebody who was running a tour for Slipknot that was like, hey, do you want to give us some money and run a trailer at Slipknot's concerts? And we were like, oh my God, it's the Slipknot guys. Let's see what we can do. And so we gave them some money to run a trailer at their concerts to try and like get in the door and like have more conversations with these guys. And then we started talking to them and they were like, oh, this actually sounds really cool. But the one criteria is that every member of the band has to be a part of this.
Yeah.
And we were like, man, there's a lot of people in Slipknot. How do we do that? Which is why we went with, you know, the kind of multiple forms of different skins that reflected the different people. But the guy, we did talk to a lot of the members of the band. I know Kellen in particular got to talk with Clown.
Yeah.
Yes. Quite a lot. And we went out to their concerts a few times, and they were really great to work with, really nice. very genuine. They cared a lot about it, and they were very involved with it. I don't think they play the game, like I said, but they were really excited about it, and they were excited to work with us on it. Yes, Kellen did get to talk to Clown. Maybe when Kellen comes on, he can tell that story a little bit more. The TMNT crossover was not super... I mean, it was really fun to work on. It was probably one of our more successful crossovers, and it was neat to do. I also was a Turtles kid. I'm of the right age. I think the most interesting thing for that one was figuring out technically how we were going to do 4 turtles, right? Because it was a requirement of the rights holder there that we had to do all 4 turtles, and they had to all be playable on the same team. That was a requirement for us to do that crossover. So we couldn't do one of our initial pitches, and I'm sure y'all would hate this, but this was just as we were thinking through how we could do this. It was like, well, what if we do TMNT Bologna, and every time you use a different attack, you switch to a different turtle. So like the ult would be a turtle, and then each of the 3 things would be a different turtle, right? Which actually works really well, because like the whip could be Michelangelo with the nunchucks and yada, yada, yada. And we were like, cool, that's a way that we could do this. And they were like, no, they have to all be on the team. So we had to actually make this all new turtle model and rig, and then reanimate it for each of the gods, right? So it wasn't like... It was a different process than normal, where you're making a skin for a god. For that crossover, it was like we made a new god and then turned it into 4 skins, if that makes sense. So it was pretty neat. It was a really great like technical achievement from the art team, and I think everybody just loved the way that turned out. They did reach out to us after the event. I think I can probably say this now, to see if they could like get our models to turn into toys and stuff. And then I don't think that ever like happened, but like they were really pleased with it. They loved the way that it turned out. And I think we loved the way it turned out too. That also was like the most overperforming crossover we ever did on PlayStation in particular. PlayStation users loved that crossover. I don't know why, but it was fun. I will stop talking about crossovers because I spent too much time talking about it. I'm sorry.
Hey, Killgoon, I wanted to ask about the ability screen in-game on console. It's less polished, and it doesn't show scaling as it does in Smite 1 for every ability.
So there are 2 things I will say. The first thing is it does show how much an ability will scale up when you level it, right? And it does show what percentage things scale off of, right? So like it scales off 75% and 80% strength or whatever, right? So it does have that. There is also, you can still get to the tooltip hover abilities if you want to get that more like in-depth detailed information. And lastly, you can look at the gods tab out of game if you want to see that information. I think what we found is that like presenting too much information in game can be overwhelming to people. There is a percentage of players that do want that, but like for the easy, straightforward ability screen, we thought it was a lot better to give you, this is what the ability does, and then show you how it levels up over time, versus just putting all of the data in there and completely overwhelming people. And we fixed push to talk in lobby. Hey, look at us. Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up, chat.
Is there any timeline for Worshipper Boost event weekends? We don't have a firm timeline yet. I know that's something the team is currently working to build out for sure, though.
But still looking at it.
We've gotten the feedback on a few shows for sure, and it's something that we're looking at definitely. Saw someone complaining about Zeus being OP. I know he just got a nerf yesterday. Design team is still looking into Zeus. If the data comes back and turns out he needs another nerf will probably be headed down the pipeline.
Yep.
Let's see. Are we bringing back first wins of the day?
maybe.
Haven't really talked about that stuff yet.
You did see, if you logged in early, you may have seen that like we have some work in progress quests.
Yeah,
stuff.
we have quests in progress.
So there will be like some quests eventually. First one of the day is like both a good and a bad system in that it forces people to play modes that maybe they don't want to play or aren't good at. And it also feels really bad when you just like, there are games that
Or there are days
you're not going to win, right? Like, so it's like, man, I really needed that favor and I didn't get it. It sucks, right?
Yeah.
So I think that like, yes, we are thinking about like quests and things to do every day and yada yada, but will the exact first one of the day system come back? Probably not.
Yeah, we saw a lot of frustration in Smite 1 when we used to run like first one of the day events, and we eventually transitioned events to just playing games versus winning games, just because you have those days where you just can't find a win sometimes, and you know we still want to get you those rewards, and it turns out just playing the game, it just feels a lot better for everyone.
It's fun, right? I really like, one of the things we've been talking about is like having an ability to like have a backup condition for a quest, which I don't know if we're gonna have in this first out, but like it's like either win a game or play 3 games kind of a thing, right? So it's like, oh, okay, I know at least I have a fallback condition where I'm going to get this thing even if I just keep losing, right? Or, like another one that we were talking about was like, killed 2 fire giants or whatever. It's like there are sometimes your team is just behind and you're never killing any fire giants, right? It's like if you just can't get into a game where your team is winning to do that, right? The pings on the map for wards and for everything else, a system we know is not good yet. We're still, it's on our to-do list.
Killgoon has a whole Google Doc.
I have many Google Docs, but I do have a Google Doc dedicated to ping system.
Yeah.
So fun facts. Two fun facts about pinging. Console can ping the minimap red, but cannot ping the minimap blue, I believe. But PC can ping the minimap blue, but cannot ping the minimap red. So that's a weird thing in Smite 1. Also, in Smite 1 on PC, if you're in the VGS menu and you say like VA, so you're like in attack, and then you click, then you'll put a 3D ping in the world that's red, and it will ping the map red, not red, because you can't ping the map red, but it'll ping the map, right? On controller, if you're in the VGS submenu for attack and you ping, like for a 3D ping, it's just a white ping, and it does not say the voice line for attack.
Yeah.
So there are a ton of like ping inconsistencies between PC and console on Smite 1. We want to address all of those as part of bringing over and fixing things. But yeah, we are, and the ping not animating with the radiate away from the ping location that's on my dock. So yeah, we definitely, there's also different sound effects for all 3 of the pings that we don't have in Smite 2 yet. So we're aware of all that. That's one of those things that's like, we need to get to, but we have a lot of other priorities. So will it be immediately? Probably not, but we're aware of it.
Is there a reason why the cool and fun item passives are for int items, making it hard and unfun for strength-only characters that have 0 int scaling?
I don't think that was the intent ever. I think that maybe we just kind of designed it that way. I think that we can always add more, or if there's like an item that should be swapped over to strength, we can always do that, right? I think that the thing is, in the short term, our bandwidth to make new items is pretty limited because we're just making so many gods. So it's a lot easier for us to say, how can we add something to an existing item, or how can we repurpose an existing item to do, have it give different stats or be something different. I think VGS is one of the best things Smite has done in terms of video game communication. I agree. Is it copyright, or do other games just decide on alternatives? So I think it's mostly that other games decide on alternatives. I think it initially came from Tribes. Yeah. So I think that we inherited it when Hi-Rez bought the rights to Tribes years and years ago. I have no idea if it's still under copyright or not. I think that there's pros and cons to VGS. The pro is that you can say exactly what you want to say at any given time. The con is that you have to memorize how to say it, right? And new players take a long time to learn how to use VGS properly. Whereas like in Apex Legends, you just like push left bumper, right bumper, whatever it is on the thing, and it guesses what you want to say. Yeah. Sometimes it doesn't say the thing that you want it to say, and you don't have quite the amount of control. So I think it's just different people have different strategies. I think that for a game like ours, which is so deep and there's so much communication needed around precise strategy and precise state of game, and also you don't have time to just push enter and type while you're moving in the way that you do in like a top-down game, like VGS is just the best solution. It's great. But in a shooter, like how much detail do you need to convey, and do you need VGS level communication, or is the like Apex style thing a better implementation? I think VGS is right for us, and I love it. And I am frequently in other games and I want to VGS with people, but I can't and I hate it. But
I see someone in chat saying my brother and I sometimes VGS terms in real life to each other, and I love it.
Dude, I
people do that all the time.
The rare, like when I'm playing another game and somebody like types a VGS thing in chat, I'm like, ooh, it's a Smite player. It's one of my people.
Has the art team seen feedback on Aphrodite's new design? Are any changes on the horizon? Or maybe we can get her default skin from Smite 1 and Smite 2 like Mulan? I know there was a big thread around Aphrodite a couple days ago.
I feel like this was like a sudden shift in opinion, because I feel like when we first revealed her, everybody was like, oh my God, she looks so great. I love her. And, you know, Slay Queen and, you know, all the, you know, things that people were saying, and people were really excited. And then there was like a Reddit thread a day or two ago where people were much more negative. So I'm not sure if there's a group of people who are negative about it on Reddit, or if that's the main community opinion, or if there's a group of people who, like, I don't understand what the community opinion is right now on that. So I think people generally, most people I thought liked the new design. If that's not the case and we need to re-examine it, we can, but I think we were excited about it. It seemed like everybody seemed excited about it. So maybe we could do the old one as a skin sometime in the future or something. It's probably not going to be at launch because it's more, we just have a lot of things that we're trying to get done right now with all the gods. But
maybe as we get a little bit closer to our launch, that preview was, you know, kind of like the low poly model. We could get Ben back on to show, you know, in game with lighting and stuff, and get, you know, just get another round of eyes from the community, just to, you know, make sure that we're, you know, getting all the feedback in there for sure.
I see this HDR support thing. I feel like I had a conversation about this, but I don't remember where it was. So I'm going to write down and I will ask. I will answer another console thing that nobody's asking, but I have seen people ask about elsewhere. PS5 Pro support when? The answer is unfortunately not anytime soon. So in order to be able to support PS5 Pro's new rendering modes or whatnot, you need to be on, I'm not going to give away too much because Sony's really weird about giving too much details about this stuff, but like there's basically like our game runs on a certain software version of PlayStation 5. And we run on the default built-in one to Unreal Engine 5, which I would assume that the vast majority of Unreal Engine games do. In order to be able to take advantage of the PS5 Pro, we would need to upgrade that software version multiple versions. And doing so would take a lot of developer time. And I think that's probably the reason why a lot of games haven't put out PS5 Pro patches yet, is that it takes a lot of developer time to upgrade to this new version of the software in order to be able to support it. If we were able to just turn on PS5 Pro mode with the software that we have, we would do it tomorrow. But it's just the initial groundwork to get there when we don't know. I mean, I'm sure they'll sell a lot of them, but you know, it's what percentage of our player base is even on it. You know, it's hard for us to commit to do it right now, but we'd like to support it in the future. We supported PS4 Pro. You know, we supported Xbox Series X, or not Series X. What was the old one called? Xbox.
S.
No. But before Series, it was
One
X.
One X.
Yes, the Xbox One X. We supported all those better versions of consoles. I'm sure we'll get to it eventually. It's just putting in the dev time right now to do that upgrade is more than we probably have time to do.
Is it intended we can't see Jungle Boss health bars out of range when wards/teammates are near it?
We were talking about that this morning.
I know, right? It's crazy.
Yes. I don't believe it's intended.
Yeah.
I believe that we just need to fix it. So we were talking about that this morning. I will try and not get us into trouble by talking about a question here. A lot of people keep commenting on the Hindu god issue. Is there any chance you can actually discuss that and clear the air about that pantheon? A lot of information has been spread about it, but nobody has said officially anything about how that pantheon is handled or the apparent issues Hi-Rez has had in the past. So I think there's two things that are important to note about this pantheon, right? Number one, it is an actively worshipped pantheon by a lot of people around the globe, right? And if you asked us in 2025 to add a new pantheon to the game, and you were like, you should add the Hindu pantheon to a game, we probably would not do it, because I think just everybody's a little bit more culturally sensitive now than maybe we were when it was 5 people in a bedroom making this game at the beginning, right? That said, we do have the Hindu pantheon in the game, and it's a beloved pantheon in the game. And our goal at this point is to treat the pantheon with respect, more so than any other pantheon in the game, right? Every time we've done a Hindu god in recent years, we've had a Hindu consultant be involved with it to make sure that we're accurately reflecting the god and being true to who they are, right? And not be exploitative of the pantheon. Even if we do that, though, we do run into some issues with promoting this pantheon, because the platforms they have like geopolitical standards, I think they're called, where basically like you can't post stuff that may be inflammatory in certain regions, like as your box art or as your news posts, because they might get in trouble with somebody about it. So we had this first pop up when we did Ganesh, and we could not, on certain platforms, we could not update our box art to be Ganesh, nor communicate out anyway through the platform's tools that we had put Ganesh in the game, because that was in violation of their geopolitical communication standards, or whatever the hell it was called. So there is kind of a built-in like downside for us that we just don't get as much visibility when we put in a Hindu god. We know that people still love the Hindu gods, and we like to do them occasionally to bring out new ones. We'll probably get to more in the future, but just it is something that we have to be a lot more sensitive about, because it is an actively worshipped pantheon. And also, we're not going to reinterpret the design of a Hindu god or goddess in the same way that we are willing to do with most other pantheons to make it more Smitey. And then we just don't get as much visibility out of it. So.
Cool. All right. Well, we are past 2:00, so it's time for one more question.
One more question. That went fast today.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It's just chilling and chatting.
Yeah, just chill and chat. This is always the hardest question.
I know, right?
It's like I only get to pick one more.
I like to wait for chat to fill up, and that way I can skim.
So I'll bring this one up because this is one that's come up a lot. Could you let us ping stuff from tab, like Anubis blink down or something like that, or let us ping items or stuff? Like League of Legends lets you do this. I don't know if other games do, but it comes up a lot in conversation. I think it has come up a lot in conversation internally as well. It's something that would be a really nice feature to have. It'd be neat to have, but it's something that only impacts the PC player base, because the console player base is not going to have an effective way to do that, right? Because like there, just in chat earlier today, they had said, "Oh, thank you for letting us move while I'm in the tab screen on console because it was broken before." Like, in order to let them interact with that, then they would have to stop moving to be able to D-pad through it, to interact with it, to ping it. Like, it would just be a challenging thing to do. Right. So generally for right now, we're prioritizing features that benefit the entire game's player base, and things that are more specifically focused on benefiting a specific platform are more of like future us problems, right? So I think that clicking to ping in the UI is something that we would love to do in the future, but not committing that we're going to do it, but it's like something that we've talked about a lot and we think it would be cool, but we just aren't going to prioritize it right now when there's a lot of things that need to be done for the entire game.
I think another thing, just because I see people in chat spamming about it, is 120 FPS on console is another one of those things that, down the line for us in the future, but not currently on the roadmap right now.
Yeah, I think that like one of the things we've been talking about is like, do you do like a performance mode versus a, visuals mode or whatever for consoles and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, theoretically it's doable, but one of those things just isn't an immediate priority. A very small percentage of the world has 120 frames TVs to be able to use 120 frames console. That's not saying that we aren't going to do it. It's just like in the world where we're prioritizing the most important things right now, 120 frames per second on console is not our immediate priority, but it's definitely something we'll get to eventually, I would say.
Yep. Cool.
Revert them to 30 frames on console?
No,
that's not what we want to do.
do.
60 frames, I think, is pretty darn good for consoles.
Yeah. Are there any plans to add little convos between gods like in early Overwatch? It adds so much character to the characters. The relationships between the Smite gods feels like an infinite well of possibilities. I know we have like targeted voice lines and stuff like that. I don't know if we would ever do just like ambient stuff, like if you walk close to somebody, a voice line would play. But we do have the targeted VGS for, you know, if you kill someone on an enemy team and stuff like that. Yeah,
I mean, it's a neat thing. I like it in games that do it. But yeah, I think it's like, you know, I'm trying to think of the way to say it. Like, it's another one of those like nice to have things that makes the game feel good, but it's not going to change whether or not you think the core of Smite is fun, right? And the focus for us right now is things that will change the core of whether or not Smite is fun. So maybe a future thing. We would obviously have to bring back in all the voice actors, record new lines as well, which would be cost, but not undoable if the game is doing well.
Cool. All right. Well, I believe that is our time. Killgoon, thanks so much for hanging out. Chat, thanks so much for hanging out. We've been at it for over an hour, so if you've been watching the stream, you probably have a Smite game access key Twitch drop that you can claim on your drops page. If you don't have access to Smite 2, which I think probably most of chat has access to Smite 2,
you probably have
but
access.
You can still claim a drop and pass the key along to a friend and get them on the battleground as well. We would love to welcome people in. We've got a lot of great reception around Closed Alpha 6, so now's no better time than ever to hop into Smite 2 and check out everything. But we will be back on Friday with J-Mac to talk about some esports. Until then, let's get down for esports. Iconic clip, can I say? Iconic. But until then, chat, we will see you on the battleground. Have a great rest of your Wednesday, and talk to you all soon. Peace.